Hello, I'm Am, and I work as a sound designer and audio director at A Shell in the Pit. And I did most of the sound design for I Was a Teenage Exocolonist, with some help from Millie Wissar on the Foley. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the sound design and break down how I did some of the ambiences. So, I Was a Teenage Exocolonist takes place on this planet called Vertumna, which you crash land on after escaping Earth with your colony. You're born on a spaceship, and throughout the game you're growing older. It starts when you're 10 and ends when you turn 20. You can choose who to talk to and what to do every day. So let's start by talking to my parents. All of these interactions take place on a hollow palm, which we wanted to be soft and organic, but still have that sci-fi element to it. So I used a lot of low ends and softened everything with a lot of verb, and just really wanted it to be easy to listen to. You can hear how subtle that hover sound is because there's so much reading in this game. I didn't really want the sound to distract from that at all. And the volume of this is also boosted higher than it was in the game, so it was even more subtle than what you're hearing now. Let's go shovel some dirt. So in this game, as you're playing through the story, you're presented with these card challenges, which you have to try to beat to get positive outcomes in the story. And so these sounds were also happening on the hollow palm. As you can kind of hear, they are based in organic material and are soft and easy to listen to, which was my goal when I was designing them. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the ambiences, which I think are one of the most important aspects of the sound design for this game, because it's all about building out this world. So Exocolonist has 5 seasons. Right now we're in Quiet, which doesn't have a lot going on ambience-wise because it's supposed to be a pretty quiet season. After a few months in Quiet season, we move to Pollen, which is an active spring season and has a lot of creatures in it. You can also hear that the footsteps correspond to each season, so Pollen has more spongy ground. And now I'll break down a bit how I made this ambience layer by layer. Interestingly, we couldn't have anything that sounded too much like a bird, so I ended up stretching out most of the creatures in here. I also added some volume, random drawing automation in there, and panning for most of the single callouts. Let's see. And then I tried to choose a lot of the birds that were more weird and didn't sound like birds. Frogs were definitely my favorite creature to use for this game. Gotta love frogs. They sound really weird, especially when you stretch them out. So this was kind of, I'll turn that up, the bass. And then just some more birds stretched out. And then I had some crystallizer going on, as well as a basic Valhalla vintage verb, which I like to put on everything. So that was Pollen. And then after Pollen comes Dust, which is a very dry season and doesn't have as much creature activity. And the footsteps are very dry grass. After Dust comes the wet season. Rainy, and if you explore outside your colony, very swampy, with wet grass. And then lastly, we get to the glow season, which is supposed to be a little bit ominous and menacing. Still very beautiful, but it's when the creatures can start trying to attack your colony. So it's very active. I'll break this one down as well and solo each of these tracks. So we have some gentle cricket tones. I think this one as well. I just want to demonstrate how stretched these are. This is what it sounds like normally. Something like there. So it's quite drastic what I'm doing to all of these files. Same with this one. And back down. And then I also like to use my own voice as a wind layer. Let's bump that up so we can hear it. When I'm doing this, I often cut out a lot. It's just me blowing into the microphone, and I cut out a lot of the high end, and I like to bump some of the resonant frequencies. And then I also put in my voice here. There we go. So when you're doing creatures, a lot of the time you can stretch and reverse, but it still has the essence of what the animal was. So I like to add my own voice because it's often not as recognizable within the mix. I think you can tell a little bit when it's soloed like this, but it also adds an emotional quality to it that is sometimes hard to get with animals. It's very forlorn. Let's see. We also have a lot of frogs. I glued this, but it is stretched as well. I wonder if we can guess what it sounds like. Yeah, probably something like that. And then we have camels. Stretched camels. Very weird. This one's a funny choice, I think. We have a lovebird. The reverb is hiding some of the weirdness from the stretching. There you go, there's a little cute lovebird. Another stretched bird. Wow. This one is stretched a lot. This one I think is kind of like a parrot. And some more frogs. There you go. I haven't talked a lot about the music for this game, but it's absolutely gorgeous. It's a collaboration from many artists, with direction and of course contribution from Gordon McGladdery. And it plays through most of the game, but by default it's not constant. So there are breaks where it's just silent, which gives you a chance to appreciate the ambience. But we are finding it kind of strange when you went from the active outdoor ambience to inside, where there really wasn't a lot going on. So I created this series of humming tones, which I imagine to be coming from various parts of the ship and would start and stop kind of like a fridge would. They ended up being my favorite part of all the design work I did and even got on the soundtrack. Some of them are a little more musical than others, and I designed them with the emotion of the game in mind. By the time I designed these, I had played through the whole game and I knew the story, and I knew a lot of the moments that you'd be experiencing were very emotional, and I closed my eyes when I was using my Twin 2 synth and really thought about what was happening in the game as I made these. And I ended up doing so many variations of them because of how many story moments there are in Exocolonist. We couldn't possibly do bespoke sound effects or music for everything that happens in the game. So I really wanted this to work for some of the more heavy or ominous parts, but also a lot of the lighthearted moments as well. They were general, and I really enjoyed how the randomness of when these would play would affect how you're feeling at any given moment in the game. It wasn't scripted, it would just happen, and I felt like there was a little magic to that.